right, this is another installment of the series about ACIM and Trumpism. It's really ACIM and politics, but the politics of the moment involves Donald Trump and the MAGA movement and what has been called Trumpism, which is basically ism means belief, a belief in Trump, that Donald Trump is someone to be followed. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today. The question today that I wanted to bring up, and this is going to be one of the most important videos I've done to date. Hopefully not too long, but just to broach this subject, and I would love to hear your thoughts. But the question for today is, does evil exist? So I want to read this quote from the Course. I believe this is from chapter 2. Nothing and everything cannot coexist. To believe in one is to deny the other. Fear is really nothing, and love is everything. Whenever light enters darkness, the darkness is abolished. All right. Maybe I'll read that again in just a moment, but I don't know if you've heard the story. It's a apocryphal story. It's not a true story about Einstein, that when he was a young kid, he was, or when he was a college student, he was in this class. The professor was maybe as a physics class or chemistry class, and the professor was saying that, talking about hot and cold. Well, I think he actually started with, forget the story exactly, something about that evil exists, right? And so, as the story goes, the story doesn't say it's Einstein until the very end, right? And this young man in the class raises his hand and says to the professor, does cold exist? And the professor says, yes, of course it does. And Einstein says, no, the cold is really the word that we give to the absence of heat. And then he does the same thing with light and darkness. He says, does darkness exist? And then the professor says, yeah, of course it does. He's not as sure this time. And Einstein, the kid says, no, darkness is really just the absence of light. And then finally he says, now, does evil exist? And the professor is definitely not as sure, but he says, of course it exists. Of course there's evil. And Einstein says, no, evil, just like cold and just like darkness, evil is also just the absence of goodness. So let me read this quote again from the Course. Nothing and everything cannot coexist. To believe in one is to deny the other. Fear is really nothing, and love is everything. Whenever light enters darkness, the darkness is abolished. Now, this is great in the abstract, right? We might be nodding our heads in assent. We might say, yeah, that sounds great, that sounds right. But when it comes to dealing with mundane earthly affairs, including politics, including, the people that are fighting over who's right, Democrats and Republicans, the left and the right, liberals and conservatives. Especially right now, it looks very ugly. And just the other day on Facebook, this guy who is doing a lot of the same stuff that I do. He's kind of my peer. He's my colleague in a way. But he really said some really nasty things to me on Facebook for things I was posting in defense of things like I was posting in defense of due process. I was posting in defense of the Constitution. I was basically posting in defense of democracy. And he not only attacked what I was saying, but he attacked me personally. And a lot of people are saying that the MAGA movement is evil, right? And Trump is evil, Elon is evil, anyone that follows them must be, because that they are. So this whole movement is evil. And what do they say about the liberals? What do they say about the Democrats, right? They say the same thing, maybe even worse, right? They're pedophiles. They drink the blood of young children. They support human trafficking. They support criminals. They support rapists and murderers in our cities. This is the MAGA and the Trumpsters, talking about the Democrats, and the Democrats, say these guys are this is insanity. Trump is a known criminal, liar, criminal, con artist, scam artist, and anyone that follows him has to be complicit in that, because they know that about him. And so they there must be something missing there, right? There must be something wrong with their heads. Now, I think the question would be, because you can look at this just in terms of, the way things are right now on planet Earth. You can look at it just in a physical, material sense, and to all appearances, it looks bad, right? It looks like, and I found myself definitely feeling the way that a lot of Democrats do, which is, how could anyone have voted for Donald Trump? He obviously lies pathologically. People call him a malignant narcissist. He seems to be that. He seems to want attention and power more than anything else. He wants to win more than anything else. That's what it looks like. Now, can you then make the jump to say that he's evil? Or some people say pure evil. And the question is, does pure evil even exist? Does evil exist? And it's just some of it is semantics. Like you could say that anything that is against the common good and against decency and humanity and shared human values and universal human values and universal spiritual principles, that is an evil. But if you call it evil, I mean, an evil, you can say it's evil in a limited sense, right? It's not good. But can you call it evil in a metaphysical or ontological sense? These are philosophical terms. But can you call Donald Trump evil in an ontological sense? Like he's the embodiment of evil. He does not have a soul, and he does not have a conscience, and he does not have a spark of divinity within him. And that's where you get to the question that I'm trying to raise today, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I would say no. I would say that, and what this course is saying, what Einstein was saying in that apocryphal story didn't happen, but it's a good story, right? And just because it didn't happen doesn't mean the story is not true. Like what the kid in the story was saying is not true, and it's definitely in alignment with the Course in Miracles, which is that darkness, evil, is just the absence of light, right? And everyone who is here, every son of God, every child of God, has that has two thought systems going on, right? We have two thought systems. We have the ego thought system, and we have the Holy Spirit's thought system. And at any moment, we can choose one or the other, right? And that is true for all of us, no matter who it is. And then we might say, well, okay, that's That's great. That's nice. That's nice in the abstract to think that way. That we're all equals here. We're all humans. We're all people. We all have, we all have our issues, our stuff that we're working on. Donald Trump obviously has quite a bit of baggage, but don't we all? And then you might say, well, nothing compared to him. Like, he's, a convicted criminal. He's a pathological liar. He's cruel, vindictive, retaliative, seeking retribution and seeking to win above anything else, seeking name and fame and power and glory for himself. Does not seem to believe in God or have much of a spiritual or religious foundation. For example, on Easter, he said he was going to go to church, but did he go to church? That's a question. I'm not sure. Maybe he did go to church, or maybe he listened to something online while he was golfing. But it seemed like he was golfing and not going to church on Easter Sunday, which you would think that he would do, not only as the president. And this is by and large a Christian nation, America. Thank God it's not a theocracy, but it's by and large Christianity is the dominant religion in the United States, and most presidents have been Christian, at least nominally Christian. I think Jimmy Carter, was definitely a true Christian. I can't speak for other politicians, but I think Jimmy Carter you can point to him as being a man of faith. Donald Trump, I would think, is probably the least that I've ever seen as far as presidents in our lifetime. And I think part of the thing is he said he was going to go to church on Easter Sunday, but did he? It's a question. And there's a lot to say about that, but everyone and anyone can have a change of heart at any time. And I think it may be true as well that